Hello, and welcome to the Scoutcast. In my haste, I forgot a bit of animation there, but don't matter, we'll muddle through. My name is Joe.
My name is Seb.
And my name's Andy.
Welcome everyone, and welcome back, Seb. And you've had your double jab dose of vaccine today,
Yep.
and
Feeling a little bit peaky, but I'll be stronger for it.
you'll get there. And a special welcome to Andy, aka FPL Mode, who is joining the Scoutcast on a permanent basis. So welcome aboard, Andy.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, I'm chuffed to bits. I can't wait to get started. I'm thrilled to be here.
It's exciting. So we've got some new fancy pants graphics, and as the weeks go on, I will learn more fancy pants graphics and hopefully master them, and they'll be even more amazing. So they're sort of limited fancy pants at the moment. So anyway, Seb, what's coming up on the show?
It's a game week one very, very soon, far too soon. I feel like we only just finished. We've just had the Euros. We've got game week one coming up. So we will, of course, talk about that. But we're going to take a pretty chill approach to it, a pretty high level approach. Talk about maybe some broader strategies, our own histories, how we've dealt with FPL in the past, pick out a few differentials, of course, reveal our teams as we go. But rather than saving those to the end, like many might, we'll do that as we go through. We'll talk about our decisions. Each of us are going to have a little chat about something we want to as well. So I'll talk about some stats naturally, because that's all I'm good for. Joe, I believe you're going to talk about some news. And
I think that's what I put in the
journalism.
notes. Seb, chat about stats and stuff.
Yeah, it says that. Seb, that's all you're good for. Yeah, fair enough.
Oh.
But first, we'll introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about our history. So as soon as I'm talking,
Well,
I'll,
as we all talk, I'll put a picture of our career history up. So Seb, I'll put that up, and
oh, lovely.
yeah, sort of your history and your ambitions for this season.
So if we could just forget about last season, that'd be great. Thanks. Just remove that one. Yes, I've been playing since 2006-7, as I think you'll be able to see there. Just back in like secondary school. Same story that everyone has. You look at those high ranks and go, "Oh yeah, I didn't take it seriously," which is always a kind of poor excuse, because if no one was, then it's all the ranks we deserved anyway. So I'm happy to own those ranks. There's a few decent ones in there. A couple of sort of close to 1,000s, 3,000, 389 2 years ago, which was my best one by a little bit. And I think more interestingly, though, than the high ranks, there's a couple that I'd love to call out, which, if memory serves, one of them was the 2012-2013. And then I think it was the next season where I tried taking no hits all season, literally not one, and finished 3,102nd. And then the following season tried taking a hit every single week, so -4 every single week, and finished 87,000th. Now, obviously, that's nowhere near enough of a sample to tell you which of those strategies worked. But it was just a really interesting way to learn how I approached that. And just for myself, I preferred the former. Now, of course, I finished higher, so of course I preferred the former. But it felt nicer from a planning point of view. The second time almost felt a bit like having to find transfers to make. And the reason I mention that is I think it's probably a bit how some of us will feel right now. With game week one, we've got all this time in the world to build whatever team we want. Lots of information, but none of it's really that useful. It's all information from last season or information from preseason or people guessing about the season to come. And maybe we're planning transfers or coming up with a few different drafts. And I know people talk about, the template and boring and safety on Twitter, but I really think just setting a team that is flexible, not too exciting, but then maybe in the first few weeks, at least this is going to be my strategy, going quite aggressive if I have to move away from that. So I'm a big fan of Jadon Sancho. I don't think I'm going to start with him, but I will very happily bring him in very early and take a -12 if I have to switch my team up. So that's probably going to be my strategy this season, maybe being aggressive early on when there's minimum information but maximum opportunity. And then in terms of goals for this season, I mean, that always feels a bit funny. Like, I guess number one, if I shoot for number one or I shoot for 100,000, am I going to play it all that differently? I don't know. So maybe it's just about what I feel happy with. Better than last season, I'll feel happy with. Realistically, I'd like 10 or 15,000. I've got a few of those in there, and I think that's probably what reasonably I could aim for in terms of a consistent best for me, I guess.
So yeah, number one, then you're going to win it.
Yeah, well, I mean that's why we're here, right?
That's the goal, isn't it?
In our mini league, realistically, I would say mini leagues is probably the thing I really want to win. The work mini league, I would take that over finishing number one in the world.
Genuinely, my goal is to win it at this stage. On Friday, after bad things have happened, or Saturday, then my ambitions just take a nosedive. So it's a very short-lived window of getting to top as being an ambition. But Andy, let's put your career history up and tell us a bit about that, and also a bit about your ambitions for this season.
Yeah, so basically, I was kind of lurking on Twitter in the background without a Twitter account for ages, and decided to join it 2 years ago. My history was fairly good. I think I did exactly the same as Seb. So a little while ago, when I think I started when I was at sixth form, and I mean, to be honest, FPL wasn't the most important thing in my life back then. It was girls and alcohol, and the less said about that, the better. And then I think kind of about 5 years ago, I started taking it quite seriously, and I think my overall rank started looking okay after that. So I think I had an 80k, a 30k, and a 15k. And then, like I said, I joined Twitter. So as soon as I joined Twitter, my overall ranks just started to plummet. Like, I didn't have one that was embarrassingly bad, but 250k I think was one, which was not great. And last year was 125. And I've been talking quite a lot recently about how to be on Twitter and be a good manager as well, because I think it's actually really tricky to do both at times, because there's so much noise out there, and the Twitter community has grown and grown and grown, and everybody's trying to do different content, different podcasts, different YouTube channels, and you've got to try and focus your attention as much as possible. And I joined it thinking that everybody was an expert, and I wasn't. And I started listening to all these people when I didn't realise that most of these people probably didn't have good ranks behind them anyway. They just kind of can shout the loudest, if that makes sense. So it's I think after 2 years, it's been something where I've said, right, I know what I'm doing. I'm in very minimal group chats now. I'm just listening to certain people, but obviously chucking my stuff out there. And hopefully this year I get back to normal. I'm hoping for top 100k again, maybe top 50k if I can, and then see what I can do past that. But you never know. I'd be more than happy if I finish first and Seb finishes second. That's absolutely fine.
I think that would be fair.
To be fair, I'll take that, dude.
Can I finish third? Is that right? As long as I can win Sky third, and get 50 grand as well. I'll buy you a Fanta.
Pint.
I think the Twitter thing is really interesting.
Thank you.
We were talking about the Twitter thing just before going on, and I think it's really interesting. The two main things that kind of sit in my head with it. I've only I joined you Joe last season, which has been real cool. I don't know if it's changed how I play, but surely it has to. Like, it has to have changed something for the better or for the worse. Leeds being promoted definitely harmed me. Like, I just couldn't think about that objectively. But I think the real thing with Twitter is, even if you try and ignore the Twitter template, as it were, you don't think of all 1,000, 3,000, whatever it is, players in the Premier League at once when you're picking your team. You have this shortlist in your head, unintentionally or intentionally. And naturally, that list of players is going to come from the names you hear all the time on Twitter. So someone I was looking at just before the show is Mason Mount, who I like for a few weeks' time. His numbers are good. He's going to have Lukaku. They're going to have good fixtures. I really like him. But you see no one on Twitter with him at all. His ownership is 20%. So, 2 out of every 10 managers own Mason Mount. But apparently none of them are on Twitter. He's just not in our head. No. And then the other side of it, which I guess links to that, is if I'm about to tell you Mason Mount is good, I like him. Look at these numbers. I think he's going to do well. In a few weeks' time, I'm suddenly going to feel real pressure to pick Mason Mount and maybe stick with him because I want to prove that I was right. Rightly or wrongly, that's really hard to avoid.
Yeah, the thing is, as content creators, because I've been doing this for a few years and I've fallen into that myself, where you make an announcement, a decision, or you big up a player on the Tuesday, and then come Friday, you're under this pressure to kind of, I'm going to definitely get that player, even though certain events may change. Other players, look better, and you do get pressure, and you do sort of almost play to the crowd in the way, and you start to take on board when people say things like, "Oh, you've chickened out of that move." What do you mean you just change your mind? Or turn it positive. Instead of Mason Mount, hey, I've got Lukaku in instead, or something like that. And there is a pressure to do that. But in recent years, I haven't really done that. Probably because when I have done that, it's really awful. So it's good to not fall into that trap. But I imagine, because there's so many new content creators, and if they're watching now and they've been doing it maybe a few months or a few weeks, and they're suddenly thinking, why am I under so much pressure? Well, that's probably why. And try your best to don't listen to negative words like chickened out, because it's basically just changing your mind, which you're all allowed to do.
And something I'd love to call out on that, and I don't mean this for any of us here at all, but like putting FPL content out there, talking about it, discussing it, putting tables on Twitter, whatever it is, you don't have to be good at FPL to be good at that. and the other way around as well. You know, good FPL managers might be terrible at that. It's a very different thing. You know, as far as I'm concerned, we're here to talk about it and just bring ideas. You know, bring you a player you hadn't thought of. Don't copy me. I finished 137,000 last year. You know, if you copy me, you're not going to do great, apparently. But maybe we'll throw 5 players at you. One of them you didn't think of. It's cool. That leads you to a good rank. Amazing. That's all we're here for.
Definitely. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, David joined the Scoutcast team, joined Fantasy Football Scout as its editor. And you know, he won't mind me saying, he says himself, I mean, his rank history was awful. But you know, quickly, within about a day of him arriving, people realised, hang on a minute, he's worth listening to, and now it's got to the point where he's moved on to his local paper in Devon, and people are going, oh my God, where's David's captaincy? Who's he captaining? Because of the captaincy videos he was doing. So yeah, and also he did become better through being a content creator, which was nice. So yeah, here's my career history, which is going ups and downs. Started 2008. I've never finished out the top 100k. So I've come,
which is really impressive. By the way.
I've come darn
consistency over high rank for me.
Yeah, I've come darn close a couple of years, particularly recently. But that's my sort of minimum goal now. Not to retain that record, because I don't think there's very many of us around who've done that. I've finished in the top 10k 7 times, top 5k 5 times. And I've got a 1k as well, back in 2013. The last 2 seasons are particularly interesting. I came 93k, so just squeaked in the top 100k. The 2019-20 season was awful for me. I look at that rank and I go, that's terrible. I look at the following year's rank, almost is the same, and I think brilliant. And the reason is because in 2019-20, I was hovering around the top 50k, bit higher, bit lower, virtually all season. And I could never get push on, and I never sort of dipped out. And it was a very frustrating season. It was when, obviously, back end of the season with a bit of COVID changes there. And then obviously last season was really hit by COVID. And that one I'm really pleased with. In fact, of all my ranks, I'm really most proud of last year's one, which was my lowest ever rank, because I was 4 million at one stage. And I managed to claw my way back in through a few differentials and playing it sensible, which is sort of the way I play the game. So people will look at that and go, 93,000, you're rubbish. Well, that's the rank I'm most proud of. And
is it like Mourinho? You're most proud of finishing second with United?
Yeah, exactly. I'm most proud of UEFA losing the semi-final, UEFA Cup or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, that's basically me there. So top ambition, get back in the top 10k, because also when I look at those ranks there, I've got that 82k as well, and then the top 1k, top 2,000 miles, 1,525. I was, suddenly pulled that back again, and then annoyingly my brain exploded the following year, and I couldn't actually press the buttons for a couple of months, but I somehow got 22k from that. So I'm sort of pleased with that, but I didn't really, by virtue of not being able to do much. So that's a memorable one anyway. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a sort of a subject each, just really, this time it's a bit more chatty, whichever, whatever comes to mind, and how it's shaping our Game Week 1 sides. Most podcasts and videos, they have all that bit at the end. And I don't know if anyone else does what I do. I just scroll forward to the end and say, I wonder what their teams are. And then I'll go back and look at their reasoning and their hours of stats and things like that. But we're going to do it a bit differently. We're going to bring in our teams during the show as we go. So we'll do a section and we'll reveal our teams, and we can chat about them, and you can say, well done, Joe, and I can say, ooh, Seb and Andy, that's a terrible one, and so on. So
if you just fast forwarded to this bit, hi.
Yeah, so if you just fast forward to this bit, so I ought to say, I'll probably put something on Twitter, just fast forward to like 14 minutes and 50, whatever. So that's when we're going to talk about our teams a bit more. I am a journalist, so I fittingly will talk about the news, and we'll talk about a bit of pre-season. My colleagues at Fantasy Football Scout, Neil, the editor, and Tom, deputy editor, have been very conscientiously compiling this. the complete guide to FPL Preseason. Do have a look at it at Fantasy Football Scout. It has got everything. It's got all the minutes they've got, how many goals, assists, a bit about formations, what managers favouring. So I picked out a few things that have caught my eye, in particular over the last weekend, because that's the lineups there, the strategies the managers are deploying. You would think what they're very close to what they're hoping to go into game week 1 for. So one of the main things to look at is players not back, lots of internationals, injuries, etc. So that gives some others some chances as well. So things of note, Mahrez at Man City I've written here. So with the likes of Foden and De Bruyne currently with a small injury, Sterling, I don't know if he's back yet, but he's certainly unlikely to be ready for game week 1. You never know, could be, but I think that's paved the way, and I think many other people have as well, for the likelihood of starts from Mahrez. 3 goals and 2 assists in pre-season, so I think Mahrez is a really good option. Is he in my side? Well, we're about to find out, but he certainly has been, or perhaps still is, in my side over the last couple of weeks or so. Very good option, I think. Jota at Liverpool. Firmino back late, so Diogo should start the first 2 at least. Always good as a sub anyway. So if I don't see him in the starting lineup, don't care, because all I need is 20 minutes from that amazing guy. Hopefully he'll get me a couple of goals. So that's paved the way really for him to start. 2 goals in pre-season, not too shabby. Worth pointing out that Salah has no goals in pre-season, while Mane has 3 goals and assists. So logically, perhaps looking at pre-season, should we have Mane instead of Salah, or perhaps in addition to? But that's maybe something we can discuss later, because I've had a sneaky peek at other people's teams as well. Barnes at Leicester, something else I've noted there. Rodgers seems to be favouring a 4-2-3-1 with Vardy up front, with Barnes amongst those supplying him, but also looking very threatening himself. We did a video last week, one of the team reveals with Zophar. I described Barnes there as shooterlicious. He shoots. He is absolutely combination of his shooting and delicious. And often they're at the goalkeeper, but nevertheless some of them go in and some of them get missed by the goalkeeper. He looks great. I think he looks a really good option. He certainly looks nailed on. Should get about 75-80 minutes, I reckon, each match. Couple of goals against Villarreal on August the 4th, both assisted by Bertrand. Another great option at Leicester. Obviously Bertrand, formerly of Southampton and Chelsea, I think it was way back. Look in the Community Shield. And Marty at Leicester, a 4.0 starter, excelled in the Community Shield. Arguably man of the match. Worth a go given their fixtures, although I suspect Leicester will be coming in for another central defender. People wondering where Seb has gone. Someone's at his door, so he's going to be back in a sec, by the way. He hasn't got bored with what I'm saying or collapsed.
I'm still here.
Yeah, Andy's still here. Andy's still listening to me, whittering on about the news. Ings at Villa. Where did this come from? I love this one, but do you like that as well, Andy, on Twitter? You talk about Twitter sometimes, the negatives of it, but the positives was great. Suddenly Aston Villa say, oh, by the way, we've just signed Danny Ings out the blue.
Yeah, I know, it's brilliant.
Brilliant. It was lovely. He scored in a friendly at the weekend. Did not surprise me. Danny Ings scores if fit. Magic words there. Main man up top. Villa have 3 great fixtures. It's sort of supplanted Ings in my thoughts and lessened Watkins, who could play on the wing, could play up with him. But, you know, if you're playing with Danny Ings, you know, you get Danny Ings in, really. West Ham, Antonio, with 3 goals and assists in pre-season. Benrahma, 2 goals and 3 assists. Case for doubling up? Could be. I know some people are thinking about it. Don't think that's too shabby to double up there. Couple more to note. Tony had a knock at the weekend, but should be fit. According to his manager, I mean, he practically will have to have his legs severed to not turn up for that one. So hopefully he hasn't got his legs severed and he turns up. White.
Did he mention FPL as well or something?
Sorry?
I swear I saw a quote where either it was Tony or his manager were talking about FPL specifically.
Yeah, he could have done. I mean, they do dabble in that sometimes, the managers. I mean, they're all aware of it. All the teams are aware of FPL. They do. Their social media managers, do all that.
I don't think Aston Villa are allowed to play it anymore.
No, I don't think they are.
No.
Yeah, after is Jack Grealish fit? Oh, suddenly, their head of injuries is just like got
Probably
rid of
why
him.
Jack Grealish left.
Yeah, deleted his team. Ben White. I think he is now the highest owned 4.5 defender for good reason. Seb will know because he had a loan spell at Leeds. I know because I'm a Brighton fan. He is brilliant. Arsenal have just signed him for 50 million, so very much long term, you would think. Or they're really, really bad with money, which would be odd for Arsenal. He's looked very sharp, I think. And I think he looks excellent value in defence. So, with all that in mind, here's my team. So I'll put it up. I'll go through it for the benefit of those listening on the podcast as well. So I'll quickly go through it. I've got Sanchez and Steele in goal. I've gone for mega cheap here. I could have gone for Bachmann and Foster, and I still may do. But I do like the fact that Sanchez appears to be number one still at Brighton. Steele appears to be number two. Their new goalie they've just transferred in, whose name escapes me, is injured for a few weeks, and Walton is definitely number three. He's not deputy for Sanchez yet. I've got Luke Shaw, who's owned by over 50% of the game. He offers routes to points everywhere, assists, and he's on set pieces, and Manchester United have good fixtures. I've got Alexander Arnold because it's Alexander Arnold. I'm not even going to say any more about him. He's just great. And Marty, I put in. I've really liked Leicester's fixture against Wolves, and as you can see, I've gone to town on it a little bit. I like Leicester's fixtures in general early on, and I also like what I saw on the Community Shield. I saw a fit side there, fit prepared side, and the fact that Amati came in and I don't know, arguably man of the match against Manchester City, just made me think. Well, if he starts, I could be getting a clean sheet here. For 4.0. I'll probably have Ben White as my backup against Brentford, so not too bad. And Luke Ayling I've got on my bench as well. So my bench is Steele, Brownhill, or it could be Gilmore. Any 4.5 non-player, well playing but non-mega scoring player will do. Ben White, I think is great. Game week 4, Arsenal's fixtures change for the better. Get him in. And Luke Ayling. I like Luke Ayling, and once again, Leeds fixtures change, but he's just good to have. I've got a 3-4-3. Salah, I've got in captain. Maybe I should have Mane, but I'm not that type of manager. It's mega owned Salah, mega captain. I'm getting him in. Fernandes, I have gone back to. I was without Fernandes for a while, but Lukaku joining Chelsea makes me realise I need a lot of money in a particular player that I need to free up somewhere. And Fernandes, I will probably captain in game week 4, or certainly be in consideration when they play Newcastle. And I'm very happy to ditch afterwards. Game week 7, Chelsea's fixtures become breathtakingly unbelievable. So I'm going to want Lukaku, I think, if he is fit and raring to go. Also across my midfield, I've got Barnes and I've got Jota. Jota, I think, is going to play. I'm happy to see him benched. It's just a player I'm okay with. I'm also happy to dump. Say if I get him down to a 5.5, like a Smith Rowe, in a couple of weeks, I've freed up 2 million. So he's a nice little cash cow player. Barnes only 7 million. I like that. And up front, I've gone back to a 3-4-3. Could have gone for a 3-5-2. Got Danny Ings. Get the main man for Aston Villa. Best fixtures, first 3 for Aston Villa by a mile. Then they drop off a cliff. But I'm happy with Danny Ings. Anyway, Antonio, I've just spoken about his goals in pre-season. If fit, I'm going to say again. So I've got an if fit Tony pairings. So I've got the Tony brothers who, they could be in an ambulance. They could be running around the pitch trying to get the match ball for their hat-trick. And I've gone for Tony, who looks like he's going to play. And he is exactly the kind of bandwagon, the Pookie party, the Michu mayhem, however you want to, whoever it is. If he bangs in the first week, his price will rocket. That's just the way it is. But if he doesn't, it's not going to drop too much, I don't think. And also, I can move him on because I've got a lot of these cash cows. Anyway, that's the plan. I'm probably going to wildcard at some point between game week 5 and 7, I think. Because I think the fixture swings, I can cope with the Arsenal and Wolves fixture swings with transfers. But when Chelsea come along, it is going to coincide with Liverpool and Manchester United's fixtures lessening a bit, and I think someone like Lukaku can't be ignored. Anyway, that's me. Either of you have any thoughts?
Go on, Seb. Go on, rip him to shreds.
Rip it.
Go on.
Rip it.
I mean, the first one being Amity. Now, I have him on my bench as well, but I have him on my bench. You have him starting. I'm guessing Ben White, Luke Ayling may come in later for that. But the quotes I've seen suggest that he's very much a makeshift. They're looking to sign someone. They're obviously looking to get players back fit. We've seen Ndidi play there in the past. So do you think that's sustainable? And then, therefore, my question would be, and this maybe links to a few of your players, when we're building our Game Week 1 teams, there's always that balance between this is my team that I'd love to keep forever, and this is my Game Week 1 team, and I plan these transfers, or I plan a wild card like you are. All it takes is, one big injury, a Van Dijk, for example, early last season, to completely throw stuff out. So would something like Daniel Amity be concerning if you end up getting locked into a non-playing 4.0 defender?
No, because I don't think I plan to start him again. I just think he's going to play. I think Leicester are rumoured to be in for Tarkowski, or it could be anyone, but they're just not going to be ready. They've got a guy who's ready. Game week 1, Amati, I think will play. Afterwards, I can look at if Amati doesn't, White coming in. Although I've got Tony, I think he'll do well. Maybe he won't, and if he doesn't, it's probably because Ben White's been good. In which case, he could get a clean sheet and bonus. So I'm happy with Ben White, and obviously Seb, all about Luke Ayling, that type of player. I want to get. That's why my bench. I haven't got like all of them play apart from Steele. So Brownhill's going to play. So what's that? 2-3 points. White and Ayling, they can come in. So I want backup, definitely. So I wouldn't have, for example, Amati and that guy from Norwich who's 4.0, or perhaps that Liverpool backup to Robertson who's 4.0. I wouldn't have two of them. I'll probably have one. So it could be that the backup to Robertson who's 4.0. But if I have both of them, exactly what you say. I mean, what happens then? There's another injury. But obviously, if there's an injury to Salah or Fernandes, I'm just going to transfer him out to Son or Mahrez or De Bruyne or whatever. So I think I'm okay with this. But it's good. This is sort of stress testing it. But that's the answer to that.
The only other one for me is like Harvey Barnes doesn't excite me that much.
No.
Like as a player, he's brilliant. But Leicester forward rotation, not entirely sure. His numbers, I think first half of last season, his numbers were really good. But on some tables we've got in a moment, I know he does appear maybe a little further down than I'd like. If I wanted Leicester, I'd possibly want to gamble on, say, Iheanacho rather than Barnes. I'm not massively against it, but I feel like, you've got 4 midfielders. He's in your top 4 midfielders for game week 1. Maybe not for me.
No, I mean, I like him. I think he's good. I think Leicester's fixtures are good. And something I like to look out for is that sort of, it's I don't know, call it the Jesse Lingard theory. Remember when Jesse Lingard everyone was going, Jesse Lingard? But then he just kept scoring and he looked really confident and fit and worked really well with West Ham. And I look at Leicester, not just the Community Shield, but in general in pre-season. And they're not really going for the 2 up top. The Barnes is there. He seems to be nailed on. He's certainly looked one of, if not their best attacking player. I really like the look of Leicester. Bertrand, I think, is a really good option. And Pereira as well. I think is there. So I've sort of dipped my toe in Leicester. I don't think Iheanacho is going to start, and I wish he would, but it's not going to happen. And I don't know what's going to happen with Vardy and Daka, and I just don't know. But with Barnes, I feel secure, and I know he's going to go for it. I mean, yes, he might not score, but he's going to give it a blooming good go. I mean, I never look at Harvey Barnes and go, oh, Harvey Barnes is so lazy. Why won't he shoot? He just can't stop shooting. It's like his legs on a motor or something. Just keep shooting at goal. That's why I quite like him. But I think it's a bit of a differential, I guess, from the template-ish.
Yeah, I like the Harvey Barnes shout. I think he's somebody that can take that next step up this year. I feel like he was somebody that showed us. He showed us flashes of what he can do last year, and he started doing really well in tough games as well, which I really liked about him. So I think against Liverpool, he got a goal and assist, didn't he, last year?
Yeah.
And you just look at it and think, I do quite like him. My biggest worry about him is whether you're he is quite injury prone, isn't he? And when you get to 60 minutes with Barnes, you're wondering whether he's going to be taken off all the time. And that's, I suppose, the other the worry with him. But upsides there. The question I was going to ask you actually was about Sanchez in goal.
Yeah.
Because I have really fallen out of love with this Brighton defence, mainly because there's no one left. So I'm looking at it and just thinking, I'm on Barkman, but even then, I'm not that thrilled about him either. And I'm just wondering whether these 4.5 keepers, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to be probably trying a wild card about the same time as you, somewhere between game week 5 and game week 7. And I think for me, after that, I probably want to be on someone like Meslier or Martinez. Yeah. But Sanchez and that, for me, I'm wondering whether they're not really worth it. Are you quite secure with him now?
No, not secure. In fact, I think I've only had him in for a couple of days. I haven't not been secure at all. What in an ideal world, what I would really like is Sanchez and another 4.5, like Backman. But this has got 0.0, and already I'm a Marty deep, so I don't want to go that far. And I do think there's a lot of good assets to get in attacking positions, which is where the points are. I look at those first 3 fixtures for Villa, Danny Ings and Antonio as well, West Ham. Look at Liverpool, Manchester United's fixtures. Look at Harvey Barnes in pre-season, and Jota being secure of a start, I believe, in game week 1. I look at those and I think, to afford them, I've got to make some sacrifices, and that's what this game's all about, isn't it? Sacrifices. So I'm not fully. I've actually been on Backman Foster for a while. I haven't liked the Watford defence in pre-season. Yeah. I also haven't liked the Brighton defence in pre-season. But now Lewis Dunk is back, so arguably they could be better. Also, Brighton, I think it's probably because I know Brighton a bit more. They're a systems-based side. So Ben White out, they've got other players like Webster, they've got Veltman as well to come in. So say Basuma went, they would move other players around. Maybe they've got players like Gross who can play in 3 or 4 positions. They're a very system-based side with that. So I'm not too bothered about the change in personnel as long as Lewis Dunk is there. He's the guy who marshals the defence. But I don't know enough about the Watford defence. All I know is what I saw in the Championship was great. What I've seen so far in pre-season is awful. So I don't want to be locked into Watford forever. But as I said, my aim is probably to wildcard, say 5 to 7. I'm just looking at Brighton's fixtures. They're great. I might get some clean sheets. And Sanchez, if the defence is worse, that's arguably better for Sanchez. Save points. But yeah,
true. It's something that I've also thought about. Oh, am I gone?
No, you're still here. You're a bit shaky.
No, I'm still here. It's something. I know. No, it's something I've thought about as well. Is as soon as the game came out, I went straight away for Martinez because I just thought with those first 3 fixtures and the way he plays the game, the saves he makes and things, and if they keep clean sheets, he's getting you 7 to 9 points. And I'm just thinking, do I just take all worry out of it and just go for Martinez? I know when I did the team reveal with you, didn't I, Joe? A couple of weeks ago, I had Martinez and you asked me about it.
Yeah.
But there's always that thought in the back of your head, isn't there, that 5.5 million for a keeper just seems too much. And also, every time I do a draft and I want to upgrade my midfield, my money comes out of my keeper. Yeah,
exactly.
And it's, I don't know what you think about it, Seb, because I know I've spoken to Joe about it before. If money wasn't an issue, I'd be all over Martinez. But it just seems too much for a keeper, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's the easiest place to find funds at the beginning of the season. This, in theory, is when you're going to have the least money to spend that you're going to have for the next 10 months. So a bench, for example, I've got a super cheap bench, unless COVID rears its head or whatever. But for now, I've got a super cheap bench. Goalkeeper, those are just real easy positions to squeeze the money out of and put it back later. Get a better goalkeeper later, get a stronger bench later. But right now, if I can take that million and put it into, a 4.5 to a Luke Shaw, I feel like that's earning me more points than Martinez over Sanchez.
Is he, though? He could, Martinez is one of those players. He could get you 27 points in the first 3 weeks.
Oh, I mean, longer term. In the first few weeks,
longer term. Sorry, I think that first
longer term, I'd be confident in saying Luke Shaw outscores... He's a decent 4.5. I mean, Luke Ayling, although he's going to get 200 points. But I think Luke Shaw is probably the better option than, say, a Martinez over Sanchez for the longer term. In the first few weeks, maybe. But then we get into the planning transfers conversation. If you want to hold Martinez for the long term, you mentioned the wild card. I'd actually argue then you maybe should start with Martinez, because you want to get those first 3 fixtures, because then he goes into pretty much a sea of red for a bit.
Yeah.
So you want to get the points on the board at first if you are going to go with him.
So other people might be in this position as well. They're looking at that, and yeah, I mean, I would, in fact, Villa's first 3 fixtures are great. I'm not sure they're that great from a clean sheet point of view, but they're still good. But then they just drop off a cliff, and it's one of those fixture runs. Game week 1 to 3, great. Game week 4 to whenever it is, 8, I think it is, 7 or 8, absolutely awful. And I just would not want to be locked into Martinez during that run. Meslier would probably be the one I would go for, because you're looking at saves. He's 0.5 cheaper than that, 5 million. If I could stretch to Meslier, I would just go with that. If Meslier had a 4.0 backup keeper, then I don't think that would be a problem. I don't mind 9 million, but I don't think that's the case, is it, Seb? Who is the backup?
I'm guessing Cabral is 4.0. Oh, of course, Clarkson's coming at 4.5 now. Oh, yeah. He's not. Okay, fair enough.
They know.
Yeah, Cabral's gone out. Oh, yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, Melia will be
FPL know. They don't do a Lundstrom every year. They know the value of these players. Remember that season when they inexplicably put Newcastle's goalkeepers at 5 million, and everyone was going, huh? And then they were really good. Dubravka.
You mentioned Newcastle's goalkeepers.
Yeah,
I don't hate the idea. Maybe not immediately. I don't hate the idea of Adala or Dubravka.
Oh, hang on a sec. I'm gonna have a look at Twitter here, because
I don't think they're starting game week 1 though, are they? Isn't it going to be Woodrow?
Yeah. What's happened there is there's been injuries. So I've got on my screen now, not your screen. You can't see it, but my screen is FPL first draft, June the 22nd. I literally made this in half an hour after it launched. So I was just screen grabbing this to see how different it was. There, I had Sanchez with Dubravka. That was my ideal. I really liked the rotation. I loved the matchup as well. Dubravka, Newcastle goalie, great. So then he was out. Dubravka was injured. So I thought, Darlow, great. And now Darlow's out injured. He might come back, but, so that dream's ended. So I had Sanchez and Dubravka. And then at the back, I had Alexander-Arnold, Kufau, who's a player I still am looking at seriously. Luca Dean, and I've always been a bit and ahhing there in terms of the price point. I like the 5.5 price point, so it's ideally it's a shootout between Shaw and Dean, and Shaw wins for me. I had Buendia in midfield, but looks like an injury doubt currently. Rafinha, one I will get in at some point, but not for yet. I don't. Arguably Leeds are fixture proof, but I'm not interested. All we can go on is fixtures. There's no form at the moment, so I'm not keen. I had Fernandes and Salah, and I had Sarr. So Ismail Sarr is another one I have an option. So if I wanted to upgrade one of those defenders or the goalkeeper, Jota or Barnes down to Sarr is a very viable option, and that I still don't discount that. That may still happen. And then up front I had Calvert-Lewin, where he was injured, and Watkins, who is still at Villa. But Danny Ings is at Villa as well, so I prefer Danny Ings. Then on the bench I had Fofana, injured. Luke Ayling. Luke Ayling's remained all this time. And Obafemi, who is probably going to Blackburn. Not as part of the deal, but Southampton have got a new striker, Armstrong, from Blackburn, who's done I like the tweet today, I saw on Twitter, that he's done a reverse Shearer. He's gone from Newcastle to Blackburn to Southampton, which is a very rare move for a striker, reverse Shearer. So he's done that, but I don't think Obafemi might just go there anyway. It's not part of the same deal. Nevertheless, Southampton in flux. And Obafemi is a definite, will he or won't he play? Whereas the likes of, say, Gilmore or Brownhill or Basuma, you're gonna get some points out of them. So yeah, that was my team that I had there. So it hasn't actually changed too much, and I think all the way through it, I've been thinking 3-4-3 or 3-5-2. And I've been alternating between the two, and I don't have a problem with either. And it's just a case of a 4.5 striker or midfielder. And currently, at the moment, this is what I'm on.
Yeah, exactly the same with the striker midfielder. The 6.5, 7.5. I've just been swapping between depending on how I'm feeling.
Okay, so enough about my rabble. Let's move on. So Seb, now you obviously, because this is all you're good for, your stats. So I'm going to put some stats up. And
is
then
this what it's like on here, Seb?
And then we'll reveal and then we'll reveal your side. So this one says on my thing on the streaming, it says Seb XGI. So this is the table that's going up.
Cool. So this is one we put together earlier, which is expected goal involvement from last season. This is sorted by mins per XGI, actually. So minutes per expected goal involvement. Expected goal involvement obviously being expected goals and expected assists combined. I guess a brief word on that before we go into it. XG, XA, expected numbers get a lot of chat all over Twitter, all over football media, and I kind of think they're blown up to be more than they're actually intended to be used for. Like, it's not some magic number that tells you who should have won a match or who to pick in FPL or anything like that. It's just another decision-making tool that we have at our disposal. I'd say it's quite a powerful one for two reasons. Firstly, it has been proven to be decent at predictive modeling. Of course, that requires a large sample size, which in FPL we're almost never working with. We look at the last 6, or we look at last season and preseason. We're always kind of working on not quite enough information in FPL. So of course, that's a bit of a weakness. But what it does do, which I really like, and it's why I use it a lot, is people will talk to you about shots in the box or shots on target or touches in the box or whatever. XG, for example, which is expected goals, kind of just takes all of those and wraps them into one thing. So rather than having to talk to you about 3 or 4 numbers, I can just talk to you about one number. So it's just easier. Now, what it's intended to represent is basically the quality of a chance. I think the best way to describe where it came from is when you hear commentators say something like, oh, he should have scored that. Someone went away and went, well, should he though? Should he really? Shall I work it out? So, and there's lots of different models. Some are better than others. The one we use at Fantasy Football Scout is Opta's model. What it does is it goes and takes 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 shots from a similar situation to the one that's just been taken and tells you how many times that was scored. So on a percentage scale, or the way it's represented is 0 to 1. So 0.5 is 50% of them turned into goals. And the factors it takes into account are things like the height of the ball when it was struck, the location of the strike, of course, so where it was in the penalty area, the direction the player is facing, the positioning of the defenders, the positioning of the goalkeeper, a bunch of other stuff, the type of assist. So it doesn't tell you if that goal should have been scored, that specific goal. It just tells you from 100,000 similar situations how many were scored. So it gives you, if you like, for a different sporting context, it gives you par in golf. So, people shoot over par, people shoot under par, and that's absolutely fine. It doesn't mean anything. It's just telling you what we would, hence the name, expect to happen in that situation. And I think the trap a lot of people often fall into is, Harry Kane always overperforms his XG. And I've just said it there, overperforms. Well, overperforms just means he exceeds it. He's not overperforming. He's really good at finishing. And if we're looking at 100,000 shots from a similar location, well, of course, Harry Kane is top of the list. And someone in League 2 is bottom of the list, which is why XG is nicely in the middle and Harry Kane is above it. So we would always expect Harry Kane to exceed it. And someone like Heung-min Son is a fabulous finisher and exceeds it by a long, long way. And then there are other people like Neil Maupay who come on the other end of the scale, and Joe will spend all season going, look at his XG, look at his XG. He's getting great chances. But we just know he's not a great finisher. So that maybe doesn't mean we should go for him. But the reason I'll bring it up a lot is it's just a real useful high-level way to identify players who have a good chance of scoring points. And then expected assist is just XG taken back one level. So it's the pass that leads into it. To bring this full circle, XGI is those two numbers combined. And the reason we've ordered them by minutes per XGI here, so Salah top as you would expect with 116 minutes per XGI. So every 116 minutes, we would expect him to get a goal or an assist based on these models. The reason we want to do it at minutes by this stage in the season is it points out probably more interesting things. When everyone's fit, you can go, for example, bottom of the list there is Callum Wilson, who is looking very good compared to some of the other players that, well below him. He's just ahead of Bamford, who you can't see there, for example. If he's fit, Callum Wilson is an amazing option. Of course, he's not always fit, so his actual XGI number as a defined figure isn't as high as, say, Bamford. But per minute he plays, it's better. So when he's fit, you might want Callum Wilson. Anyway, I've rambled long enough. Yeah. So I'd love just to ask you two, before we move on too much further, just your thoughts on. I know not everyone likes it, and that's fine. So I'd love to know what you think about XGI.
I'll put up a couple of the other slides we've got. So this is XGI. So people will look at that. Basically, Salah, Fernandes, Vardy, they expected to score a lot, and they do. And then what Seb was talking about, sort of overachieving. This is the XGI overachievers. So they're perhaps scoring more than they're perhaps. I say overperforming, but that sounds an awful sort of subjective term.
I think the really important thing to highlight with it is We don't know why. This number doesn't tell you why. It just tells you what's happening. So Harry Kane, for example, top of that, he's overperforming because he's a world-class striker and Man City want to pay silly money for him. So his is sustainable, we would think. There may be other players on that list who you might look at and go, I don't know, say James Ward-Prowse or something I think is there because he's banging free kicks. You might think that isn't necessarily sustainable over the long term. Maybe he's just gone through a good run of it. But maybe he hasn't. The point is we don't know. XG does not tell you why something is happening. It just tells you what is happening.
Okay. And
Yeah,
I've
and
got
I think you're right there in terms of it's got to be taken in the context as well, hasn't it? I feel like that list that Joe's just brought up, this is the list of bandwagons that can be missed, if that makes sense. Like Lingard last year, so many people said it's not going to continue because of the underlying stats, didn't get him, and missed out on some absolute hauls from him, didn't they? And I think Gundogan was probably in that kind of mould as well, wasn't he? Although he was getting some good, he was getting better opportunities, I think, than Lingard was, wasn't he? But it's that same kind of thing, isn't it? And I think you've got to use it to help you with your decisions as opposed to only use it for your decision making, isn't it? And I do really like the way you obviously talk about it. We're going to be talking quite a lot more soon, I think. I'll be sliding into your DMs, mate.
I think, but the way you've said it there is really nice. I guess by the end of the season, your fantasy team should have been full of all these players. Every player that overperforms, because that's the point, right? We want a player that is performing better than everyone else.
Yeah.
The thing with Lingard, the oversustainable thing, not sustainable, sorry, was I was probably in that camp and this was because I was lazy with it. And this is a trap. People talk about stats, means you can avoid the cognitive bias traps. They help, but you can still fall into them. And I think I did. I was probably lazy when I first looked at Lingard last year because all I did was look at his XGI, look at his output. It's much higher than his XGI. It won't continue. Ignore him. It took me a couple of weeks to realize his XGI was actually still really good. Even if he regressed, he would still be doing amazing. So I guess, as you've said yourself, there's so much more context.
These stats are for all of the season, but if you looked at them for the final few game weeks of the season, I haven't done the research, but I would imagine it would be a player like Joe Willock would go on there every week. He can't keep scoring for Newcastle. You better believe he can. He just keeps doing it, and he's going to be back at Newcastle. Going back to the news, I think it was 22 million. They've just paid Arsenal for him. So one to watch, perhaps, an overperformer.
Yes. And that's the thing on the sample size as well. XG, all stats, everything work better with large sample sizes. Yeah. XG, I think someone may have said you need really about half a season, if not a couple of seasons. Well, we don't have that luxury. So we kind of have to make an educated guess. Someone like Lingard, someone like Willock, by the time you know for sure, it's too late and you've missed the points. And to bring us, I guess, to that stats eye test conversation, I'm not sure that exists. It's just two ways of interpreting a football match. But if you must, I think right now at the beginning of the season is where the eye test is better than stats because stats are all last season or they're on a limited number of games. What the eye test can do right now is maybe have a decent go at predicting what the stats are going to do in a couple of weeks. So if we watch, the Brentford match on Friday and even Tony has 0 shots, therefore has 0 XG. Because that's the thing, if you don't take a shot, you don't get any XG. But let's say he spends all his time in the penalty area, they keep looking for him, he's inches away from getting on the end of a tap-in. Well, the stats will tell you he's got nothing. But by watching the match, you'd go, well, next week he might get 2 XG because he's going to get 2 tap-ins from, 5 yards out. And so you could maybe get slightly ahead of the stats. And I think the one time to really do that is early in the season when the stats don't have enough to go on.
I've got another, you sent me another slide as well. This is the underachievers. So perhaps you could explain this one. So if you start seeing these, well, this is for all season, but, imagine we're seeing an underachiever type stat. So take us through this really, because it will help me understand it, I think, really. So this has got Neil Maupay at the top, so it needs explaining.
This is the antithesis of the overperformers. So if we've got Harry Kane consistently overperforming because he's really good, these players are consistently underperforming, either because they're bad or they're unlucky or other reasons. So for example, Neil Maupay, we might say, well, you watch him, Joe. Is it because he's unlucky or is it because it's bad? What do you reckon?
I think I don't think he's a very good striker, but he offers a lot to the team that is perhaps not good for fantasy points. But whereas if he's playing as a striker, if they're playing him as a striker, they maybe, well, he's looked much better and been better for Brighton when Welbeck's been playing, and so Welbeck has taken the goals. So that's why he's he's taken a lot of shots, a lot of them perhaps on target, but maybe they're not of a quality.
I think that's perfect. So I think what this tells us, so Neil Maupay here had 8 goals last season from, I haven't got his expected goals there, but he got 2 assists as well. His XGI is 16. So he underachieved by 6. He should have got 6-ish more returns. We can assume that's mostly on the XG side. I think it was from looking at the other numbers. What we know, and we all know this, right? Brighton created a ton of chances and didn't finish them. Arguably because Maupay isn't a good enough finisher, or maybe he was unlucky. But it can start to point us either at bad players, or the interesting thing for FPL managers is players that have been unlucky. And I know this ties nicely into your goals imminent stuff, Joe, where you look at people who are taking shots, good shots, and not scoring them. Someone like a Luke Ayling or a Saka, who are 3rd and 4th on this list, might come into it. So, for example, Luke Ayling, he got 0 goals and 0 assists last year, but we would have expected him to get just under 5.
Yeah.
He also had a goal and an assist ruled out. He had the Bamford goal, which, by the way, with the VAR changes, that Bamford goal against Palace would have counted now. That, I believe, was a Luke Ayling assist. And Luke Ayling also had a header ruled out against Fulham, which was pretty marginal. So, he can convert. He just got them ruled out. So if he performs again like last season, we might expect him to get some points this time. Obviously, he also played in the back 3. So if anything, they may be higher if he plays at fullback all season. So those are the players where you can really find an edge in FPL. Now, I'm not saying you captain him or anything like that. The players you want to captain are Harry Kane, the guys who, do even better than their numbers and are consistent with them. But the ones where you can find points that other people won't find are the players who, aren't putting in the net. So people are watching much of the day, don't see it, but we know they've got a chance to do it.
Well, what's interesting, you bring up the goals imminent table, because this is sort of like a season-long goals imminent table. But this is a good precursor for will be a staple part of the Scoutcast this season, will be me showing the goals imminent table. And this basically does this sort of thing, but over 4 game weeks. You can extend it to 2 or 6, but I find 4 quite a useful one. And what this shows is players. So I think I set it to a minimum of 10 shots, but no more than 1 goal over 4 game weeks. And I also include more filters around expected stats as well, and big chances. But in essence, if a player is having 10 shots, I want to know why they've only got 1 goal from that 10 shots in 4 games. And some of them obviously have many more. So it's looking at that. And also what that does in the table is it will have things like shots on target. So you could look at a player like, say, Coutinho when he was at Liverpool, and you could look and think, well, he's had 10 shots, but only 1 goal. What's happening here? Well, they're virtually all from long range, and so maybe 2 of them are on target. But those 2 all look amazing, and that's what people remember. But they'll forget the eight ones that are going into row Z. But what that goals imminent table and what this shows us, we can expand this more, is we'll be looking at things like shots on target, shots in the box, so shooting from range. If you shoot close to the goal, imagine Gary Lineker sliding in, you are going to score more goals. That's the way it is. If you shoot from 30 yards out all the time, you're going to score less goals. It may look good when they go in, when 1 goes in, but it looks less good. It looks good sort of stat-wise and FPL-wise. So that's something we'll look at. So yeah, it is interesting. A lot of these names, Neil Maupay will be on that goals imminent table.
An example someone gave me the other day was, that's a bit before my time, but Andy Cole, his reputation of he should have scored more goals than he did, despite being in a brilliant team and scoring a lot of goals. I suspect, now this is before we had XG numbers, but I suspect Andy Cole may well have massively underperformed his XG. And that thing that people have in their head, which is like, oh, he should have scored more. XG is just a way of putting that into, a visible numerical metric that we can actually test him against. Of course, it has failings, of which often gets quoted a lot, and you'll see me do this all year. It's not great at single matches and it's terrible at single chances. Now, I know I said it came from that, the commentators saying, oh, he should have scored that. But, a 0.1 chance, which may be a long shot, or a 0.05 chance, which might be a massive long shot, they do go in sometimes. That's why it's not 0. Okay. So if, for example, we see Jesse Lingard score a chance that has a really, really low XG, that doesn't mean he shouldn't have scored it. It just means that was the one that went in. So it's not very helpful for individual situations. Like we say, it's better over the long term. Okay. And another one that it's not great for, I would just say, is expected assists sometimes aren't the best, because especially for FPL, because unlike XG, which is you're relying on that player to convert the XG into goals, expected assists, you're relying on another player to convert the chance. So where Jack Grealish, for example, could create a million chances, but if he hasn't got a striker to put them away, he's not going to get us the FPL points despite his brilliant numbers. So again, like Andy said, you just need to go a little bit wider before you pick your team based on just this.
Okay, with that in mind, here's your Game Week 1 side. So there we go. Take us through this lot then. Who have you got for the benefit of those listening on the podcast?
Sure. So this has obviously been based with a few numbers and things in mind. Hopefully that explained a bit of my thinking there. So Sanchez in goal. We know Brighton's defensive numbers were decent last year. 4.5. I want a cheap goalkeeper. I've got Foster on the bench at 4.0. I'd happily switch those around. I did look like a backman at one point as well, like you. I know there was a risk of him leaving, so we'll see. But I'm happy with a cheap and cheerful goalkeeper for now, and I think Sanchez is the best of that, despite Brighton's defensive issues, although that looks a bit better. Dunk's back, I believe, and ready. It's maybe just, is it, I know Lamptey's out, and you're missing
Burns out as well.
Thank you.
It burns out. So it'll be a back three, most likely Webster, Dunk and Veltman, with whoever as right back, or as right wing back, and similarly on the left as well. There's a whole bunch of players that could be, but I think you're safe there with Dunk, Webster, Veltman, I think.
And I think that's solid enough. I'm not going to pay too much attention to preseason. Leeds have been awful in preseason, truly awful. But we actually have been every preseason to Bielsa, and then we often go and blow someone away. So we'll come on to Leeds a bit later. But preseason's for fitness. I then have Trent at the back because you have Trent at the back. That's how you play FPL. I have Luke Shaw because I did have Robertson, and I was one of those probably tens of thousands of people who went, I suppose I'll just get Luke Shaw instead. We know he has good numbers. He's right up there actually for his involvement numbers from last year. Decent enough fixtures, and it's I'd probably describe it as a frictionless move. Like I can do a lot with it without too many worries. I'm happy to hold on to that for a while. And then Luca Dean. Everton have good fixtures, not necessarily the best for defensive returns, but good enough. And his attacking numbers are brilliant, and I think he has opportunity to convert those in the early weeks. And again, it's an easy enough move out of it if I had to.
Okay.
Oh yeah, please.
No, I was going to say carry on. I'll rubbish it in a minute, but
yeah, you're storing it up.
Just keep rattling them off.
I'm waiting. So I've got Mo Salah in midfield, captain. Again, I don't think that needs much explaining. I currently have Bruno Fernandes, although this will 100% change by Friday. Like this is kind of I've made a few drafts. I wouldn't say I've necessarily settled on a team yet. What I don't want to do is be switching like 8 or 9 players and not know what I want to do on Friday night. What I want to do is have, say, 3 drafts in my head, a Fernandes and Salah draft, Sancho and, say, Son draft, which could be, I'd take out Jota, who's my other player here, for Son and Fernandes for Sancho, and then maybe another draft with, say, Harry Kane or Lukaku. I want to have those teams in my head already so I can just choose the team I want rather than picking between players and questioning myself at the last minute and doing that thing we all do. I think there's a lot of strength in, I've spent the summer looking at drafts, building up my options. I know what I've got. Nothing should throw me. So ask me again next week when I don't do that and it goes wrong. But I do have Fernandes for now. And I have Diogo Jota as well because his mins per XGI, as you will have seen on the last one, are very, very good. So even if we don't think he's going to play all season, that's fine. I'll have him for the first few weeks. I'll get hopefully those points and then I'll move on. I have Rafinha for a similar reason, although slightly opposing logic. So if Jota is someone I'm going to move on, you might say, well, why have you got Rafinha? Because he starts with Man United and then some poorer fixtures too, and then the fixtures get better. Well, I don't have unlimited transfers to start the season. I'm very happy to have Rafinha, hold him for some poorer fixtures. He did get 2 assists at Old Trafford last season, I believe, in the 6-2 loss, so it's possible. And, save a transfer there, have him for when the fixtures turn. His numbers are very, very good. He passes the eye test, and it's a little bit of Leeds, so I'm happy. And then up front is very much trying to play it by the numbers. So I have Antonio and Wilson, who both could get injured very quickly. But again, if you looked at those tables we had a moment ago, and I've got a forwards one here as well, where Antonio and Wilson are basically up top for minutes per XGI. They're up there with your Iheanachos, interestingly, but your Vardys, your Kanes. If they play, they are some of the best in the league for getting chances. Antonio, I think, has underperformed his XG every single season, so we wouldn't expect him to convert all of those chances, but he doesn't have to. He's not far off half the price of Harry Kane. It's fine. He can slightly underperform and still get loads of goals. And then even Tony, because as we discussed a little minute ago, that could be Emi Buendia. Like the thing you'll notice is if I don't have any Aston Villa, I do want some Aston Villa. It would probably be Emi Buendia. But it's Tony for now. I'm pretty easy on that last slot. I've been flipping it around. So I think he's a good enough option. And then the bench is as cheap as you like. I've got Foster 4.0, Amati 4.0, Omabamidele 4.0 from Norwich, and Brownhill because he's going to score 20 goals this year. But I'm a big believer in I want my money in the team. If COVID rears its head or something happens, I know I've got 2 injury-prone strikers, sure, I'll shift that around. But as mentioned earlier, I'm super chill with taking a -4 immediately and then a -8. Not a problem. I want to be aggressive early on when I have the maximum amount of time to get the most out of it.
I think, looking at that, I like it actually. Wilson. Now, a bit of lively chat going on the not below the line, on the side to the line, whichever way are you?
Oh, I've not got that up.
And
I've not got that up.
Well, on my screen, that side, that lot there. And I think it's because they're looking at Wilson. But I mean, I might be wrong. They might say in the chat there, but they say, "Oh, terrible team." But I think immediately you look at Wilson and go, "Oh, injury." But Wilson's a player that I've often had in my side. I came to the decision Antonio or Wilson because I really wanted a Villa attacker because of those fixtures, and so that's Danny Ings. But yeah, Wilson or Antonio for me. But I think Wilson's a really good option for the reasons you've explained, and the slides that you're saying with the XGI.
Talisman theory, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
His numbers are brilliant. If he's fit, if he's got decent fixtures, and I kind of hate this one, but his record against West Ham is brilliant.
Yeah.
So if you like that, he does have West Ham. I have 0.5 in the bank, and I don't have Villa. There is every chance that is Watkins or Ings, but I like him. Look up his numbers and then come talk to me again.
And the point you make about Tony is really good, because when we get team news on a Friday and the deadline's on Friday, we're going to have to make a quick move. And that's when, the more sensible managers will make a correct move, or rather make a more reasoned decision. And people panicking will just go, and then suddenly, before you know it, you've got Aubameyang, Lacazette, front line, and you're wondering, where it all went wrong.
And that's the thing I want to avoid. I want to avoid
but I think with
someone being ruled out and having to rip up my team, I want to know what I'm doing.
So in your case, you're looking at some of those other 6.5 options in midfield. And I'm looking at that sort of thing as well. So I haven't got Rafinha at the moment. So if Tony is out, I'm not locked in with Brownhill. So yeah, if Tony is out, I'll swap him essentially to Rafinha, it's a player I probably will want at some point, and he can score against anyone, and then switch that 4.5 to a non-playing striker, that I don't know, Davis at Villa or someone, and just take it like that. And so I think that's quite a sensible move, is playing the price points. But in Game Week 1, like with a wild card, you can play those price points across positions. You haven't got to think. A lot of people will look at Tony out and go, who do I get in who's 6.5 or 6 million? And then before you know it, you're waking up with Neil Maupay and wondering where all the XGI went wrong. But I think you're looking at that, and Game Week 1, we can be more flexible, and we can do things like look at maybe Ismail Sarr at Watford could be an option. There's more options to be creative, and you can also go maybe 4 at the back. My only problem with this team, please, is just that the bench, because it is good to go completely cheap, but I always like to run away from my decisions. And I think with Wilson, Antonio, whose legs are made of spaghetti before you put them in the water, so they're brittle, and there's going to be a transfer there, and you have to make that transfer. Because your bench, you've got these 4.0 defenders who are at risk of either not playing, or in the case of the Norwich defender, being rubbish because it's Norwich and they got tough fixtures. And Brownhill is obviously just your 2-3 points, and Foster doesn't play, and he's the backup to Sanchez. So why not Steele as your backup to Sanchez? Because if Sanchez is out with COVID, who comes in? It's certainly not Ben Foster, because he plays for Watford.
Honestly, that's probably just laziness. Back when last time I did this team, I'll make that work. The bench is very much. I've got 0.5 in the bank, so you might say, well, why isn't one of those defenders a 4.5?
Oh, yeah.
Because with current thinking, I would almost rather have that 0.5 ready to deploy into the team. For example, an Antonio or Wilson to a Calvert-Lewin or Ings, rather than having to make 2 transfers to make that happen, to get my 0.5 back in the bank.
I take back what I just said about where do you run away from a decision, because you've just detailed the decision that you would make to run away from. Exactly that. Antonio's out injured. Oh my God, what shall I do? Step forward, Danny. Well, if Danny Ings is fit, step forward, Danny Ings. And you've got that 0.5. I haven't got 0.5 in the bank. Andy, what do you reckon to this lot?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think you've answered probably the biggest question I've got, which is that you're happy to take hits with this team before your wild card. Because the one thing I actually don't like about the team is the inflexibility of it. I know you've got the 0.5 in the bank, but I feel like you'd be having to take multiple moves to maybe get players in if they start playing well. Like, for instance, if another midfielder comes in, if Rafinha scores against United, you're not going to be wanting to get rid of him for the next week. And, Bruno, Jota, Salah, if Jota does play well, you're going to be wanting to keep him. And I feel like all the players I want are in midfield at the moment. I feel like strikers are dropping like flies, like genuinely dropping like flies all over the place. And I feel like it's all the midfielders I want. And that's why you'll see my draft in a minute. I've got 5 in the middle because that's where I want to be making all my moves, I think. I think we've all done the same in terms of 3 at the back. I just worry about that flexibility. But you've already said that you're more than happy to take a -4, -8 at the beginning, aren't you?
Yeah, and you're right. I love the midfielders is often some of the best sources of points we can have. I do love that 6.5 to 8 striker bracket. I've had a few drafts without it, and I suddenly feel like, but there are so many strikers I want access to. And I guess that's the word. I don't have to have them. I just want access.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the same for the midfielders. Like with a -4, -8 even, the midfield can change a lot. And this is a battle I've kind of had with myself, and it comes back to this wanting to be right. Before Lukaku joined, I was very hot on Havertz. Now with Lukaku joining, I really like the idea of Mount. But I'm happy to wait on Chelsea because of fixtures, because of rotation. And if I take a -4, even in the second week or the third week to make it happen, I feel like that's a decent enough price to pay to make a move. And I have 36, 35 weeks to have that -4 pay off. Yeah. That's a lot better than people who take a -8 with 2 weeks to go, because why not? Let's punt. It's the end of the season. I've got a whole season to make it up. So, I mean, Man City, we've not even spoken about Man City. I'm kind of just deliberately avoiding that until we know more. You could definitely get a lot of points by going, say, Grealish or Mahrez or Torres, right, if he starts up front. But again, I'm kind of happy just to wait and make my move once I know a bit more on that.
Yeah. Well, the only other thing I was going to ask was Jota. What is going to be enough to scare you off starting him? Because Firmino's played tonight. He got 2 goals and looked good. What would be enough for you? Because if you're not obviously going to hear team news before we lock in, are we? So are you happy with him? Is he pretty much locked in your team, or do you think he's somebody that's going to be fluid, moving in and out, throughout most of your drafts?
I think I'm playing that mins per XGI game, and he probably has the best chance he's going to have in the first few weeks of getting enough minutes to therefore get points. So if I'm going to have Jota, now is the time to have him, especially with good fixtures.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, the thing that might actually stop me is a 4.0 defender at Liverpool, because I've got 3 Liverpool already. So if I went and brought in Samakis for, say, like Amati or something, I probably have to drop Jota, which I wouldn't be too unhappy doing, moving him to like an 8.0. Grealish isn't maybe such an option until we know a bit more. But there are other 6.5 and 7.5 out there, all bringing in a striker.
Hey, we just had some medical advice. Dr. Pedger in the chat. I don't know if he's a real doctor, but Dr. Pedger, how about Greenwood over Jota? Greenwood is supposed to start the first few game weeks, and he's right there. Greenwood is a great option. Manchester United have options, but it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, doesn't it? About you get team news on a Friday. It's looking like Firmino is just dazzling everyone, and maybe Jota isn't that secure. Maybe I'm not going to get my 20 minutes out of him. Maybe I'm going to get 10 minutes, and I'm thinking, Jota maybe. But Greenwood does look more secure at the moment, just before Jadon Sancho gets up to speed, and of course Rashford is out with an injury. So lessons there, options up top. Good news for Greenwood. And I like that price point. So it's a 7.5. You read the team news, you think, Jota, get Greenwood in. Simple. You don't have to rip up your team. You don't have to suddenly, come up with all new plans. You've got your structure in place. So would that be something you would consider, Greenwood?
Yeah. I mean, what I really want to do is I want Sancho. It's just I don't think he's going to start the first week, and I don't think it's a risk I need to take. No. It's easy enough to move from Fernandes to Sancho. I know I don't want to plan too many transfers. But I'd really like to. When Salah first joined the league a few years ago, I started with him in game week 1 and had him all the way through. I was very pleased with that. I did that based on his form elsewhere. Sancho has similar-ish vibes. I'm not calling a 30-goal season, partly because he's a different player. He's more of a creator. But there are similar vibes with a player with extremely good numbers, extremely good performances under his belt, coming into a good side where he has the potential of earning points. So that would tempt me. If I was going to do anything, I would do that. And then that starts opening things up like a Kane or a Lukaku or a Heung-min Son. The other thing here is, having a captain for, I think it's game week 3, is it we'd want one? But I'm not super keen on getting a player just to captain them for 1 week. So if I'm going to have expensive players, I want to give them the captain because that's the only time they're really worth their money. Now here, I'd probably just swap it between Salah and Fernandes. So I'm comfortable with that, and then we don't need to chase another. If I got Kane, I'd probably lose Fernandes for that reason because I'd no longer captain him.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I've gone back to Fernandes. He's just so expensive and so easy to dump if it goes wrong. And he's not captainable. And he's not as good an option as some of those others, like Son, if Kane isn't there, or perhaps Kane, if Kane's at Spurs or at Manchester City, wherever he is, he's good. And then there's likes of Mahrez as well. You mentioned Sancho. But Fernandes, can be moved around, and we've got Lukaku as well coming in. So I just like to have that money there. I like to spread the money around, but not so much that. I mean, because with Fernandes, you could go down to something like a 4-3-3, and you can have a 4.5, or it could be 5.5. Smith Rowe is 5.5. And you've suddenly got huge millions there to upgrade Antonio or Wilson to Lukaku or Kane, and I quite like that. That's quite flexible, and I mean that's one of the reasons I've gone for Ings. I wanted to make sure I had 7.5 or 8 million striker that I was quite happy to get rid of at a certain point, and because Lukaku going to Chelsea, that's huge. We don't know his price at this stage. People will know as the week goes on. But
and not just for Lukaku, I really fancy Mason Mount a bit later because he now has a striker who could easily get 30 goals. Lukaku is very, very good, and Mason Mount will create chances for him.
Indeed. Hey Andy, let's have a look at your team. I mean, how do you want to do this? Do you want to chat about something and then go, or do you just want to go straight into your team?
Yeah, I think we were saying about obviously this is my first week, so I'm more than happy for people just to get used to who I am, get used to the fact I'm going to be ribbing you two as much as possible, and then I'm more than happy just to bring my team up and have a bit of a chat. Okay. Really. Yeah, that'd be great. So,
well, let's go. Here we go.
Have you got it up now?
But yeah, here it is. It's the 3-5-2. So take us through your team.
Yeah. So basically, I've got the Barkman Foster double up because I just love the fact that you can have both of them and you're going to have a keeper every week. I did love their stats in the Championship last year, and I thought when they went, especially the second half of the year, they looked really, really good defensively. Yes, they haven't looked great in pre-season, but it could be because he's trying a few different things and that, so that doesn't worry me too much. I feel like at least he's going to be getting a few save points, so it's not too bad. I think Shaw, Soufal and Alexander-Arnold's absolutely fine at the back. Shaw, I think 5.5 million is a great price for him, considering how much he actually creates in that team. Trent, we've already spoken about before. We don't need to talk about him too much. Soufal is somebody I think, when you look at Cresswell at 5.5 million, I like Soufal so much more at 5 million. If they're going to go back to a 5 at the back and play 3 at the back, then Cresswell's going to be that left-sided centre-back, isn't he? And I hate the fact that his upside goes as soon as that happens. Whereas Soufal, if they play 4 or if they play 5, he's still going to be that attacking right-back. And that's what I love so much about him. He finished the year really, really well last year as well. So he's been in a lot of my drafts. And to be honest, he's probably going to be in there towards the end as well. I have got Salah and Mane there. I'm not sure whether it's going to go to the deadline, whether I go Mane or whether I go Bruno. My biggest thing with going with Mane is I love their first 2 fixtures. Do I feel like Mane is going to outscore Bruno in those first 2 fixtures? Yes, I do. Am I going to be happier losing Bruno or losing Mane as the cash cow when I want to upgrade to Lukaku? I'm going to be more than happy losing Mane because I've already got Salah. Am I going to want to lose Bruno if he starts well? Probably not. So I feel like Mane is there as a brilliant first 2 game weeks, potentially, and then I can downgrade him to maybe someone like Havertz, maybe somebody like you said, maybe even go all the way down and go somewhere like Emile Smith Rowe for the 3rd, 4th game week as well. But I really like the upside of those 2. Will I definitely do it? I'm not too sure yet, but I really love the idea of going without Bruno just because he's going to be so highly owned. I feel like Leeds game is going to be tougher than people think it is, although I think they've now got Llorente out as well, which doesn't look great for them, obviously. But I feel like Mane and Salah together have more of an upside. and with Trent as well. I mean, I've basically got 4 Liverpool players for that first fixture, which is lovely to me. Mahrez, I've been trying to sneak him into my team so much, and I've finally done it, which I'm quite happy with. To do it, I did have to go to 2 up front, which actually I think is absolutely fine with considering it's the midfielders I want. So Mahrez, I feel like he could be my captain in game week 2. At home to Norwich, I think is lovely. I feel like with Man City, if you ever have a time you think a player is nailed, you have to jump on them. KDB is one of those players, isn't he, where he's going to play every game, so we jump on him when he's fit. Mahrez, I feel like this is the time now where he's never been more nailed than he is right now. He's had a great pre-season. He's had a long rest as well. Foden's out, De Bruyne is out, Sterling's, had a long Euros as well. Bernardo Silva wants out, so does Jesus. And I just feel like they're going to be looking for goal scorers in their team, and Mahrez is going to be that goal scorer. And I just feel like the upside is just so there for Mahrez at the moment. Even against Spurs away, I mean, the Spurs are the kind of team that they're more than happy to get their bellies rubbed by the big teams, aren't they? So I'm more than happy to have him against Spurs as well. And then Rafinha, I feel like he's just one of those players where I'm going to want him eventually anyway. So I'm just happy to start with him because for that 6.5 million bracket, I looked at Buendia and it was just with that injury now as well. And I don't massively see the upside of Buendia. The fixtures are great, but he's not one of those players that's going to be getting in the box, taking shots, getting goals for me constantly. So I'm not probably going to be going with him now. But Benrahma is somebody that yes, there's a bit of a hype train going on with him at the moment, but I think it's well deserved. I feel like he's going to be taking that Lingard role in this West Ham team. I feel like he's proven to Moyes that he can be that X factor in the team. Everybody else around him is just going to be doing their jobs, and he's going to be able to just take control in that attacking midfield position. He's looked stunning when he's played pre-season so far. He was a little bit hit and miss last year, but I think that's because he was in and out a lot. Whereas I think if he gets a run of games now, I think he's going to be great for 6 million. So I really, really like him. And then I got Tony and Ings up front. I completely agree with Joe with Ings. I like the fact that I can move down to quite a few strikers if I wanted to, but I can also move up quite quickly if I wanted to as well. Someone like Lukaku, although I still wouldn't touch Lukaku till game week 7, I don't think, just because that's when their fixtures turn. And then Tony, I think 6.5 million for a striker that I can see getting between 12 and 15 goals this year. I feel like the Brentford team has just aimed towards him, and he's going to get chances. So I'm more than happy to keep someone like him. I think a couple of years ago I started with Andre Gray when he came up with Burnley, and I kept him through. I think he blanked the first 2, and then he played Liverpool and got a brace. And I feel like that's what I'm going to be like with Tony. Just stick with him. Like, it doesn't matter if he blanks the first 2. Just stick with him, and he'll probably get you a goal later on. So, and I think for 6.5 million, that's fine, to be perfectly honest. So, I mean, bench, Foster, because he's. I've got Foster in there. I don't know why. No, that is right, isn't it? Yeah,
Foster's back,
right. Yeah,
so
he's obviously back at the bottom. Sorry. And
then Foster
Ayling,
overdrive,
I think, is the perfect 4.5. And then Omar-Bamadeli, I think, is probably going to turn into the Greek dip that I can't pronounce. Simikas? What is it? Satsiki, whatever his name is.
Simakis.
Yeah. and then Obafemi up front, because, to be honest, there's no 4.5 million players that are even... I think most of them are going to get loaned out anyway. So... oh, God, Seb's waiting, isn't he? But yeah, no, I love my team, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. So...
This isn't even this was me, like, because you say Omar Bamadeli I did not say that right. Omar Bamadeli may turn into Simakis. You can't do that. You have 3 Liverpool players.
Yeah, that's true. That's because that's if Bruno does come in for Mane.
Right, reasonable. So yes, similar thoughts in my team.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me as well because I'm a United fan, and I've got to take emotion out of it. But watching United, if we do well, Bruno's involved. And to watch United and just watch Bruno get cleaning up all the points, and I don't even own an FPL, is really tough at times.
Yeah, I get those feels. Like watching Leeds last season. Like I came into the season being like, I've watched all these silly people with their fan, the clubs they support in the Premier League, getting all confused by it. Yeah. I'm better than that. I can totally do it. I went the other way. I avoided Leeds altogether. Dallas did great. Bamford did great. Harrison did all right.
God.
And I ended up looking stupid for the opposite reason, So I fell into the exact same trap, just in the other direction.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, like watching Leeds with Bamford was like, we streamed it a few times for Gianni, and you could probably see it on my face. I'd be like, yeah, Leeds score. Oh, fuck, it was Bamford.
I'll tell you what, smug Brighton fan here. Yeah. Never, ever regret not owning it.
Although Brighton, you beat us 1-0 twice this season.
Oh, well, only when they play Leeds.
You've got us down. You've got us down.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on then, boys. Go on, rip it to shreds.
Okay. Okay. Right.
Okay.
Right.
I've got one. If you're thinking.
Right. No. I can look at this. I do like what you've got there. One thing is put up in the chat. You have got Ings v Backman immediately. So you're happy with the save points from Watford, I presume?
Yeah. Do you know what? It's one of those things where I've looked at these kind of things before, especially when you have rotating keepers. And sometimes when you've got rotating keepers, you're like, oh, I'll avoid playing my keeper if they're playing my striker. But you just never know what's going to happen. Like that game could easily be 0-0. If it's 0-0, you know, I've played the upside play with Ings and it's Bachmann that gets the points. It could be that Ings gets a brace. The worst thing, obviously, that happens is it's 1-1. Ings does nothing and Watford concede. But I genuinely don't have an issue with that. I feel like it could go either way. Worst case scenario, like I said, it's 1-1, but there's not a lot I can do about that.
When I'm doing all the sort of team reveal videos over the last week, and including with yourself, Andy, I always like the ones with Mahrez in, not because it's Mahrez, but because Mahrez is 9 million. And 9 million player, he can become Son, who, if Kane isn't with Spurs, Son against Watford, game week 3, it looks a good captaincy shout, arguably. Also, he can become Jadon Sancho. Also, it's money in the bank, so you can upgrade one of your strikers, say, to Kane or to Lukaku. So I really like Mahrez, and I have had him on my side. And if I didn't have Fernandes, I would have Mahrez. But I think it's really bold what you're doing with Salah and Mane. I think that's quite a nice... as I keep saying, the sensible play, based on pre-season, based on current form, what we have, and Mane's comments that he's made about how he wants to improve much more this season than he let himself down last season, says to me that Mane is the smarter move. And the times I've had Mane and no Salah, I've just changed his name, Salah, and I've had Mane and no Salah in my side. I've always the only time it's let me down was catastrophic, and it was once. And it was when Mane got injured in a triple captaincy week, and everyone will remember that, who triple captain Mane, got injured, Salah went on, did really well. So that was the only time it didn't work out. Most times, Mane has pretty much covered Salah's points, if not exceeded them. And he's sometimes looked the better player on the pitch. In fact, quite often has. So I'm not averse to that. And I don't think Fernandes is... I'm not even going near Fernandes in the captaincy until game 4.
That's a really big thing for me, actually, is that how much can he really punish me if no one's captaining him? And actually, I feel like, especially the first 2 weeks, it's going to be Salah for pretty much everybody. Yeah. So the punishment I'll be getting by not having Bruno is actually not as bad as it would be. And the Southampton game worries me a lot more than the Leeds game. The Southampton away in game week 2 worries me more because I feel like Southampton are there to be attacked in that game, really. Whereas the Leeds game, I do think it's going to be tight. I think United might win that 1-0 potentially. I mean, it could be a 94th minute penalty from Bruno. You never know. But if it is, you know, that's 8-9 points that he's going to be getting. He's not going to be getting 16 for players because they're not going to be captaining him. So, like Seb's been saying, you know, he's happy to take a -4, -8 at the very beginning. I'm kind of happy to go against the Bruno stream and go for Mane because, like I said, I just feel like there's a lot more upside with Mane. If people are going Bruno and he doesn't do anything, Mane's less than 5% owned. Yeah. Like, this could propel me up.
He's same price as Fernandes. Yeah. And once again, what I like about Fernandes is not necessarily Fernandes. It's the fact he's 12 million. And so you've got money there, you can move him. Salah Mane is presumably not a combo that you would have long term. So one of them is going to make way. So you've got money to burn. Your money bags,
like you said, Mahrez to Son is 100% in my plans. I'm not 100% sure on Son. I think a lot of people are convinced he's going to be brilliant without Kane there, but I'm not sure myself. But I want to see 2 weeks of him, and then in game week 3, like you said, he could be the best captaincy option. So that could be a move straight away. I'm definitely looking to roll second in the first game week and have 2 free transfers in game week 3, but we'll see what happens. I'm fairly happy with this team, to be perfectly honest. I think it would need some big changes for it to change.
I like it. It's bold. It's very bold.
I really like the Mane. I've got Fernandes currently because it's easy, but I could definitely see myself without him. As I said, and as you've said there, if you're not going to captain him, is he worth that money? I like the idea of Mane just for those first few weeks at least. I guess though, with that in mind, I liked your explanation on Mahrez. I'd then question that again with Tottenham away in the first week. It could be 5-0, but it probably won't.
Yeah.
In week 2, I think that's what everyone's got in mind, right? They want to captain him against Norwich.
Yeah.
Salah's got Burnley.
Yeah.
Do you actually need a Man City captain against Norwich? It's super attractive, but you might end up captaining Salah anyway. If Salah scores a hat-trick against Norwich, you're going to feel real tempted to keep that captaincy on him. Does that then take it away from Mahrez, especially if Mahrez is then going to become Son?
The thing that I like about Man City, and I think they're the only team still in the league that can do it, is they can consistently score tons of goals in games. Like, there's not many teams in the league that can do it. And even if I'm not captaining Mahrez, he's more than capable of getting a hat-trick in a game. And that's what I really like about Man City players. So, yes, basically, it's like you just said, if I want to go against the grain a little bit, still own Salah, but go for Mahrez as captain, I still think that's a really nice way to go, because I'm mitigating my everything going wrong because I've still got Salah, even though everybody's going to be captaining him, but then getting Mahrez as well and maybe captain him too. I just like the fact of having the option there. Best case scenario is someone like, Salah blanks game week 1 and everybody starts going everywhere with captaincy, and then Mahrez feels maybe a little bit safer. But I just like the options that this gives me in midfield.
Yeah, I like it. Like I say, if I went away from Fernandes, I might go Sancho and then use the funds elsewhere. But it's a very similar vein to, it's just trying to get points that other people aren't going to get. You've gone Mane, I might go for, money elsewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know. We like this. I think it's good. I personally wouldn't do it. Say that, but that's not because I think it's rubbish. But
I like it. Don't do it. But I like it
because I'm just not that kind of manager. I will play it safe with Fernandes. But I think the Salah Mane double up is a really bold, interesting move that's attacking those fixtures, particularly the first 2. And then you're going to be looking at Spurs, and you've already got City coverage there. I say coverage, but hopefully he'll play. But you can move easily to Son then, and then you're looking at game week 4. That's when I'm looking at Fernandes. So what would you do in game week 4? So game week 3 comes around. You've successfully moved Mane to Son. Son against Watford has worked out. Game week 4, who are you going to captain when the likes of me and others are going to say, "Ooh, Bruno Fernandes, home to Newcastle. I'm captaining him."
Yeah, it's I've got to decide whether I'm not going to start with Bruno, and that's going to be I'm not going to have Bruno for a little while now. The thing for me is I'm wondering how long people that own Bruno are going to own him anyway. Are people going to ditch him after game week 4? What are people going to do with Bruno? I feel like people aren't going to own him all season long. He is their make weight, isn't he? As soon as people want to move to that striker, they're not going to be getting rid of Salah. They're going to be getting rid of Bruno.
It is that game week 4. So it's that game week 4. Well, how about this for a cool segue? Let's have a look at the next 4 fixtures. Because
there you go.
There we go. Because there we can see what you're talking about there, who we're going to captain in that question. And this shows, Brighton, Villa, Everton. I haven't liked the look of them pre-season as much, but nevertheless, they're there. And then Manchester United, 4th on the season ticker. And it's that they've got Leeds to start, Southampton and Wolves, all good fixtures, first 3. But then I don't know if I would captain Fernandes then. But game week 4, and looking at game week 4 for captaincy, you've got Liverpool away to Leeds. Well, once again, I'm not sure that's Salah captain time.
Really? I think it might be.
Could be.
Like, I know people have an impression of Leeds' defence that I think is undeserved. We were lucky at the end of the season. Like, we changed things. I think we improved a bit, but we didn't improve nearly as much as it looked like we did. We conceded a lot of chances, and they would, if you look at the numbers, they were generally missed because of poor finishing, even above, Meslier making good saves. Like, Meslier, I think, actually underperformed his prevented numbers. So it was just poor finishing.
Yeah.
I don't know how sustainable that is, especially if we're going to start the season again with not our first choice defence.
Well, maybe Salah would be. But, I look at those fixtures there, and I think who's got the best fixtures? Manchester United at home to Newcastle. Who am I going to captain? I'm going to captain the home guy who keeps getting double-digit balls. He sweats them. They're coming out of him with every pore.
It's tough as well, though, isn't it? Because by game week 4, these FDRs could be completely changed as well. Like, we look at it last year. Nobody knew West Ham would be the team they were, and after a while, it turned out they were a 4 team to play against, wasn't it? They were tough to play. So I mean, you'd still say Bruno against Newcastle at home would be quite nice, wouldn't you? But Newcastle might start the season with 3 clean sheets. You never know. With what is it, Woodman in goal? I can't remember his name now. So,
some bloke.
But no, it is something I have to think about though, and it is something that I could get to game week 4. I mean, I'm going to have 3 transfers to use by then, and if I go down Seb's route and I get aggressive, I could go 5-6 transfers by then as well. So it could be that I get a bit of FOMO and go for Bruno by game week 4. But
that's what we have to do. You talked about the sort of Twitter sphere, and especially when we're content creators as well, and that FOMO. I spoke on the Meet the Manager with Ross, who's just written a book about the mind game that we're playing, and that included FOMO, but far more posh psychological terms for that. But the fear of missing out is very real, and it's something that we as fantasy managers have to contend with. And something I look at, and I look at those 4 fixtures there, and I think, who am I going to captain each week? Who is the best captain? Who's the guy that everyone's going to captain, but actually for good reason? That they could score the most. And I look at that, Manchester United at home to Newcastle, and the amount of Manchester United fans around the world. And that's the other thing I noticed with FPL. As soon as a Manchester United player does anything, suddenly their ownership, if Mata came on, his ownership would rocket. It just happens all the time, and so he'll be heavily owned and captained. People in the Twitter sphere will probably dump him after that, but most FPL players won't.
Here's an interesting way of sort of maybe looking at that. Something I was wondering about is when we play FPL, we're obviously always so focused on last week and next week. Like, it's all that matters for most of the season. And even in game week 1, we're looking at the first few weeks. And I know this doesn't quite make sense, but if FPL was, say, played in batches of 3 matches, so we couldn't change our team for 3 matches at a time, or they all took place on one day, whatever it is, they all happen in 3 batches. I think that would very much change how you play. Now, of course it would, because your transfers would take place at different points. But I mean, from a mindset point of view, if you look at those fixtures and you're thinking, I want, on the eve of game week 4, you're going to be terrified of Fernandes against Newcastle. But if the eve of game week 4 was the eve of game week 4, 5, and 6 all at once, you'd probably be more scared of not having Salah. So I wonder if we can be drawn into this trap of over-focusing on just the next thing and going, week by week by week, wanting the best pick, the best, the most dangerous option for that next week, as opposed to looking more holistically and wanting someone who over a longer period of time is going to return the most points. Now, of course, with captain, we can move that around, but we don't have enough transfers to have the best team every week, of course.
But before we came on air, I reminded myself of something in a Meet the Manager video I did with Tom Freeman, which was his advice: play the game week in front of you. And you have to play the game week in front of you, but at the same time keep an eye on the game weeks ahead of you. And that is the trick of doing well at FPL. And so that's hopefully what we're trying to do, is preparing people for the first game week. And that's why we're putting the next 4 up. We keep mentioning about Chelsea's fixtures game week 7 onwards, and Lukaku being an option. And that's what it's about. It's about having a great looking team every week and using the 37 free transfers we get, the odd hit, and our chips to achieve that. So I don't think anyone would look at 3 game weeks and say, well, that's it. But you mentioned we don't have that in FPL. Obviously, it's not a 3 game week. I tend to look in blocks, but in the Sky game, it is actually that game, because everyone's got essentially a wild card after game week 3. So essentially, Sky players are actually only playing a 3 game week game. So that game does exist. So go and play Sky.
I get to take Tom Freeman's advice and try and build it into that. That's interesting, because at first you'd say, that contradicts what I just said. And hey, maybe it does. Fair enough. I wonder, though, if you did take that advice real literally, you'd look at game week 1, game week 2, game week 3, and then get to game week 4 and go, oh no, Bruno. So maybe you'd transfer him in. But you wouldn't have held him up to then if he's not the best option. So I guess obviously, right? It's a bit of both. Of course it is. That's everything in FPL.
He's a good example of why perhaps having him isn't a good option, because Leeds at home, Southampton away, Wolves away. I don't know about those fixtures. He could get double-digit hauls in all of them. He might blank in all of them. I don't know. But having him is quite nice. And I don't think, he's a good player and they're good fixtures, but it's more the game week 4 where I would captain him. But that's mainly because you look at the other ones, like say Leicester are playing City, so I'm not so interested in there. I mean, who have Spurs got there? Looking down the list, can't even find them. Tottenham,
they have in game
Crystal Palace away. Okay, so
Son
an option.
I guess the thing with Bruno is he often feels like a sort of longer term consistency pick. Now, of course, we want to captain him in certain weeks. But the way he seems to return points and his numbers, the consistency under what he does, I know we've mentioned here, have him for the first few weeks and then dump him. But if anything, the play with him often just seems to be pick him and forget about him. And over a period of time, he will return some of the most points in the league.
I mean, Joe, if Mane and Bruno were both 0% owned, so Bruno could not hurt you if he hauled, who do you think is going to start the season better? Who do you think is going to score more points in the first 2 to 3 weeks?
First 2 weeks, I think Mane, because he's got Norwich and Burnley. But game week 3, Liverpool got Chelsea, whereas Bruno in game week 3 has got Wolves.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at 3 game weeks, I think Bruno might have the edge.
Bruno might pip it.
If I'm looking at 4 game weeks, because I look at the Liverpool Leeds game and I look at the Newcastle Manchester United game, I think once again Fernandes. But thereon after, has that persuaded you to get Fernandes in instead of Mane? But
no, because for me, Mane will be. I will be shocked if I still have Mane in game week 3. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have him for the 2 weeks, and then he's going to be that cash cow to move things around a little bit. How it happens, you never know. But that is my plan at the moment. Right. It could be that he becomes Bruno. You never know.
Here's my prediction for this season, and it's a strategy prediction. The last couple of seasons, we have been blessed, lucky. I don't know, maybe this is why I haven't done so well, but there's been a limited pool of premium captainable options. Salah, maybe you might dabble with Mane. Salah and Fernandes, they've been your main guys.
Kane,
there you go. So what are you talking, 4 players? Yeah. Chelsea have been out of the picture. Vardy's been on the wane. People have captained him to success, but he wouldn't be someone you'd be confident with every week. Suddenly, this season, we could be getting Kane to City. Son could be a better option at Spurs. Could be. Lukaku at Chelsea. And then you've got Manchester United. And you've got other assets at Man City. You've got a whole range. And then you've got the likes of, say, Danny Ings at Villa. So people have mentioned in the chat, and I think this is a valid strategy. Who would you captain game week 3? Villa at home to Brentford. And they were shipping goals for fun. And Danny Ings is amazing. If fit.
Yeah, that's fair.
A good option. Suddenly a good option for the captaincy. Suddenly we've got a range, but we've got this range of premiums. So I think this season is going to be about, you can't have them all. That's the same every season. But what you can do is you can look at these fixture blocks and go, Mane, I'm going to move him to Son. Son, I'm going to move him to KDB. KDB, I'm going to move him to Fernandes. I'm going to save that money and then get Lukaku in game week 7. You can start looking at things like that. And I think, so it's going to pay to have good, cheap players, I think. That's why Luke Ayling's in my side.
I think that's entirely reasonable as well. Like you mentioned Luke Ayling, I don't have him, but you probably want someone who you're not going to have to swap to another 4.5. You just keep him for 15 weeks so you can use your transfers elsewhere. Yeah. And you've mentioned all the premiums there. We're not even mentioning Kevin De Bruyne. I think he's probably a little overpriced, but I know I'm going to want him at some point. You can't have them all. You could probably build a team with Trent, Salah, Fernandes, Kane, maybe squeeze Mahrez in. But then you have massive issues if, say, Lukaku becomes good and you don't want to lose one of the others. It becomes very lopsided.
Vomit to see that team because it would be filled with the most atrocious 4.0 nothings.
Yeah, quite possibly. I quite like the idea of trying to make it work, but it would maybe feel quite limited. I can see myself in 3 weeks' time feeling very, very stuck and having to wildcard. So like you say, it probably is about trying to play that premium roulette a little bit.
We've got genuine great enablers this year as well. When you think we've got Emile Smith-Rowe, who's going to be Arsenal's number 10 this year. You've got Willock, you've got Mbuemo, who I think is actually being really overlooked because Tony's there. I think you've got, like I said, Willock, Ben Rama. You've got all these players that are 6 million or less that can be really good enablers for you to get those premiums in. And I think a lot of us are going to have.
I tell you what, you've just done a magical segue into the next section where we're going to pick some differentials. We're going to need them, aren't we?
Yeah.
These are going to be our swords. We've got our shields in place. We need our swords as well. Low-owned gems. So I'm going to go first. And I'm going to pick Dele Alli because he's brilliant. Mourinho's not there. He's kryptonite. Hated his dreads, hated his discussion about toothpaste or whatever he was chatting about on that documentary. Dele Alli, when given the chance, does well. He's a good player. He looks to be playing in the number 10 role currently. He's favoured by the manager, scored a couple of times. There was a charity North London derby, I think it was for Mind, which was I think Seb's got someone at the door again, or I've just bored him. But there was a charity match, and Dele Alli was just hitting the bar for fun. So you can look at that in two ways. Wow, he's really close, or wow, he just can't. He's just not accurate. Either way you look at it, he's in attacking positions as well. He's 6.5 in well under 5% of teams, well under. And he has actually been, for a day, in my side. I actually put him in there. When Buendia looking like an injury dow, the first thing I did was put Dele Alli in. And I spoke about Rafinha being a good 6.5. If I want a 6.5 in midfield, and it's I've got to make that move quick. Dele Alli is in my thoughts. And then people on, which side are you? That side, they're going to go, Dele Alli, you're mad. But over the years in the Scoutcast, he's been known to me as Super Sexy Dele Alli. Every time Harry Kane has been absent, which he could be permanently from Spurs soon, there's a little switch, like Buzz Lightyear, where it gets flicked at the back, and suddenly Dele Alli goes from being a normal Buzz Lightyear to Super Sexy Spanish Buzz Lightyear, and he's incredible. And he's doing the fandango around everyone. And yeah, I've just had good times with Dele Alli, and I quite like some more. So yeah, he's my differential.
Yeah, fair enough.
Who wants to go next? Andy?
Yeah, I can go. Seb missed his chance. He left the seat again. So mine's the man in my team, Mane. I think for a player that we've seen can score braces for fun, I think the fact that he's under 5% owned is almost criminal. I know he's 12 million, but he's got beautiful fixtures.
That surprised me, actually. I thought he'd be a little bit more than 5%. That is, wow.
Yeah, 4.1 I think he is.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So it's I feel like he is somebody where he's perfect in terms of he's going to play, he's got the ability to do well, he's got the ability to haul as well. And when you couple him with Salah too, I just feel like the upside is beautiful there. So for me, he's a great differential. Yes, he's 12 million. That is obviously the big thing with him. But I see it. I genuinely see it. And I think when you're looking for differentials, you're looking for players that can do it when you want them to, and they're low owned. I know Kane a couple of years ago was so low owned at one point because he had injuries, and he was the perfect kind of differential to bring in, someone you can do it.
Aguero,
so
Sergio Aguero,
Mane's just up there.
I remember Late Riser on another video. He said,
Aguero.
I'm going to get Aguero in and captain him. No one else was thinking of that. Hat trick later.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And they're players can do it.
Yeah.
And it just seems like the perfect time to do it. So.
Very good, very good. Oh, no arguments there. We've already spoken about Mane. Seb, who's your differential for next four?
I think mine's kind of easy now with the injury. You want to keep an eye on it, but Samakis, because of Robertson being out, assuming of course he takes a spot for long enough for it to work, which maybe is probably at least until the first international break, maybe a bit longer. So of course, from a real life perspective, we wish Andy Robertson well, but if he is unfortunately injured for a period of time, there's a 4.0 Liverpool defender there waiting who Liverpool will be weaker, but will they be 7 million to 4.0 weaker? I think it's a nice opportunity just to have a 4.0 starter and money elsewhere. Can
James Milner play there?
He can, but is he going to now at 104 years old?
Whoa, could do. I don't know. James Milner's magic. I remember seeing one of his early games. He was on loan to Swindon. Swindon rocked up at the Withdean Stadium against Brighton. And this young 16-year-old literally had joined them within 24 hours. And he came on and he was like, wow. He was like a fully grown man age 16, best player on the park, obviously, and he hasn't really changed. He's always looked one of the best players on the park at 104.
He's very good.
Worth remembering, by the way, if Milner does end up playing, he takes penalties from Salah.
Ooh, good move. And also,
do you reckon he still does? He probably
I
does,
think he
which
still
is an
does
interesting chat.
personally. Yeah.
and also,
I guess
we haven't mentioned about the penalty decision about VAR, so that brings that in as well. There
With
could be
Bruno,
less penalties early on. We don't know yet.
I guess like fall into the old football trap of well, why did Liverpool sign Marcus if it's not to play when Robertson is injured? Just because they signed him doesn't mean they're going to play him. But you would feel that he probably is going to take that slot. I guess if he doesn't, he possibly doesn't come off the bench, maybe to give James Milner 10 minutes rest at the end. But he's 4.0. I'd be, differentials. There's two at the beginning of the season. There are probably two ways to go with differentials. The way Andy has gone, which is you go for Mane over Salah.
12 mil. Yeah.
Well, no, but I mean, like that's legit, right? It's literally differentiating yourself from either Salah or from Bruno, or by doubling up on two good options. Or I think what you're trying to do is find unreasonably good value. So yeah, there's a risk that Tsimikas doesn't start. But let's say Tsimikas was Liverpool's starting left back. Robertson has moved on years ago. He's gone back to Hull, and Tsimikas is their starting left back. Even if he's not as good as an attacker as Robertson, he'd be 5 or 5.5 million, right? Just because he's their starter. For me, therefore, there is some clear value there to be had. You use the money elsewhere. And if it's long enough for you to then fix your team with a wildcard or transfers when Robertson does come back, I think you can find some really good value in that move.
Yeah, no, I think it is. My only problem with that is it just ties up a Liverpool place. So, say if I did want Mane and Salah, or definitely Jota, you cannot ignore him. Then yeah, I mean, I don't know as well. Van Dijk, I presume, is not going to start, or at least could be a bit iffy for game week 1.
I'd assume
Van
he would
Dijk,
start.
I've had good times with Van Dijk in my fantasy side over the years. He's got a goal in him. He hoovers up the bonus, clean sheets. I just don't want a Liverpool player locked in with a guy I can't pronounce and has only just appeared.
I think taking a slot is a very valid concern.
Yeah.
If you've got Salah and Mane, you can't have Trent. If you've got Trent and Salah, as most people probably will, do you really want to go Tsimikas over your Jota or your Mane? Yeah, I think that's a reasonable shot.
Hey, before we go, we got a new feature. This feature idea came to me last night when I was chatting to a guy called Alex Braithwaite on Twitter, and so anyway, I'll put his team up. Now I haven't had the time to make his team all fancy, so I'll bet old school here. So I'll put his career history up, and then I'll his team, and then I'll discuss what this is all about. So Alex has got a very good career history. So if you have a look at it, he is. I'm trying to look at that there. He got 80. He was 84th last year. How about that? I mean that's a 10th of my best ever finish ever. And
he's the best manager on the stream so far.
He's the best man, and to be fair, this is the best career history we've seen. He's had quite a few top. He's had another top 10k and their top 5k, I think, and he's never finished out the top 100k. So he's another like me. So he's got this very impressive career history, but he doesn't want to play this year. And what he did is he doesn't want to play for this year. He just needs to break from it, and it's quite a good reason really, because it's due to health issues, particularly around stress and anxiety. He's actually been he's put it here. There's been advised to him, which have been exacerbated by playing FPL. So for the good of his mental health, for the good of his health, he's taken a break. But
he's in the chat, by the way, Joe.
Oh, good. Hello, Alex. Hi. It says, Alex. Oh, that's me. So the problem is, though, that what you can do in FPL, you can just simply blank a year. And that's what I would do. But he'd already made a team. So his team was already there. And he can't get rid of this. He can't find a way to get rid of it without deleting his account, essentially, and this wonderful career history. So he doesn't want to do that. So I was chatting to him, I'm thinking, well, we've got a few high finishes. I'm also, trying to protect a top 100k rank. So could we take it over? Could this be the Scoutcast team? And the three of us, with a bit of help from the community, each week will attempt, and this is a real pressure. This isn't like someone coming in who's never finished inside the top 2 million and saying, can you manage your team because I can't be bothered. This is a guy, who's got a real reason not to play, and wants to protect this great career history. And so this is, I mean, I don't know why I've done this on like a Sunday night. We'll put pressure on ourselves. I've got my own team to think about, and got this is going to be more pressurized. So we're going to do that. And so this is his team, and it came in so late, really. So just the germ of an idea. We're going to show his team up every week. We're going to start making some moves. I actually like what he's got so far. This is probably because why this guy is so good. So he has got, for the benefit of those listening to the podcast, he's got Sanchez, Alexander-Arnold, Kufal, Shaw, Salah captain, Fernandes vice captain, Saka as his sort of differential there, Rafinha, you can rely on him, Ings, Antonio, Tony, the Tony brothers, and then at the back he has got, just trying to look because I've copied this so quickly, can you read that on there? Is that Backman, isn't it? Yeah, he's got Backman, so he's got like a goalkeeper rotation, Veltman, good early fixture with Brighton, Ayling, Leeds defender, good option from 4 or 5 onwards, and Brownhill as well. So I'm reluctant to change anything here, but just before, we might just keep this as it is and then make our moves next week. But any moves you make there, Seb or Andy?
The only thing I'd probably want to do, and the natural thing here is make it my team. It's not my team, make it my team.
Yeah, get money in.
Yeah.
No, that's what we've got to do. We've got to think, okay, we're Alex.
So
you've got an 84
there's a lot of money on the bench, is what I'd say then. There's rotating goalkeepers, presumably. I've not checked out Watford and Brighton's rotation, but I want to make sure that works.
It is good. It's really good. That's why I'm quite keen on this one. But
so we're keeping that. I wonder if we could find a 4.0 and save a 0.5 over the Veltman and Ayling, simply because Alexander Arnold, that's his parents, presumably. Yeah. Trent and Shaw play every week, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Even maybe Man City, maybe not Man City, but they play every other team. So Veltman and Ayling are then vying for that Soufal role. I wonder if we don't need 3 players for one spot, and we can save a little bit of money and maybe do something with Saka, who's good in a couple of weeks rather than immediately.
Now, what would we do with that? Say we put Ayling down to your Liverpool guy, or your Leicester guy, any of these 4.0s, even the Norwich guy. Say we did that. Where would we use that 0.5?
Is Saka, I want to say he's
Saka's 6.5.
Cool. So that gives us there's other 6.5s for a start.
Harvey Barnes?
So that would give us a 7.
Barnes.
You could have Harvey Barnes. You don't have to spend it either. You could keep it in the bank. But with Saka, none of us have got Arsenal players apart from Ben White from the off. They have very, very decent fixtures from 4 to about 15. And it's a bit like Everton. It's a run where you can just pick a player and forget about them. It's one of the reasons I like
this is sort of, you can see what he's done is there's a sort of dead team vibe to it. So if you had to leave a team, you know that there is a good run.
So that's where we're going to find the edge, right?
Yeah.
Trying to move players around rather than just leave them. So I wonder if we can leave Arsenal alone for a couple of weeks and then come back to them.
I'd be tempted by what you were saying there and Saka to Barnes. There's not any other 6.5 to 7 million players. At 7.5, you can move to Jota and Greenwood.
One day is 6.5, isn't he? But if we've got Danny Ings, I guess
Ings,
maybe, and you're not sure on Bendoy, are you?
But I think that, Andy, what do you think? Any other changes you'd think?
Yeah, I don't mind the Barnes shout. It depends. It really does depend what we want to do with it. Whether we want, because actually, I would say the rest of his team is pretty solid and are definitely going to play. So I think you could even go a bit gambly for that spot. I think you could do something like, free up an extra million, go for someone like Gundogan or something like that.
Or Dele Alli.
Yeah.
This is my Dele Alli team.
I said gambly. I don't want to add to his stress.
If we're going to do that, should we gamble that Ferran Torres plays up front?
Oh, that's good. Now, Alex has said that we're free to make bold moves. So.
Do we have to decide now as well?
What?
Do we decide now?
No, not necessarily. No, because what we'll do it in the chat, on our Slack chat for this. We'll before we make a move. But obviously, team news. One of the reasons he's had good ranks here, I would imagine, is because he quite savvily looks at team news towards the end of the week. There's no point us making a move now, just for the benefit of the viewers, when who knows who is injured or not injured at the end of the week. So at some point towards the end of the week, we'll put up some, we'll chat about it and we'll make some moves. But currently I'm siding with Seb in that I think, and you as well, Andy, in that we can probably move someone like Veltman, we've already got Sanchez, down to a 4.0, or Ayling even to a 4.0, and then use that money to beef up Saka a bit to Harvey Barnes. I like. Don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, it's up to him. Further. Also, I'm more than happy to take this team on Friday night in lockdown because I'll be at Fest, so I'll be a few points down.
Oh yeah.
I'm more than happy to lock it in for him.
No way.
So Mane captain.
I'm
Mane
keeping
captain.
this away from drunk people. This team is for the sober.
I just to say to Alex in the chat as well, fair play for doing this, identifying it's not a thing you want to do, and following through with that. Respect.
So
that's a smart decision.
My absolute minimum aim for this: preserve that top 100k record.
Yeah.
But let's get him to win it.
We've got 83 more places to find, Joe. Number one.
If he can beat that, well, I'm just going to keep it. He's not getting it back. But yeah, so hopefully, well, good luck with us. Good luck, Alex, on our behalf of that. So I mean, is it worth putting teams back up? Have we changed our mind about anything? No.
I don't believe so.
No, I think
not really, because I wouldn't say. I know we call them team reveals, but if my team is my team come Friday, I'd be very surprised. Like, I have a few drafts. We'll see which one I deploy, and of course, news could change it. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, no, I haven't particularly changed my mind about team news. Is going to be the thing to change my mind. So I'm going to be listening to that. I don't know who's doing it at the end of this week, because we're all changing around for the videos and the podcasts that we're doing. But do look out for the team news at the end of the week on the Fantasy Football Scout YouTube channel. Also, before we go, mention the members area, all those stats and stuff there from the members area, and also the season ticker, that's from the members area too. All lots of Opta driven data and things like the comparison tool. There's Rate My Team in there as well, and it's a team planner in the beta stage, I believe. So there's details there about signing up to that as well. And of course, my goals imminent table. That's obviously the main reason to get membership. So do check that out. In the meantime, it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.